you've got the Civil War all figured out, forget everything you've watched. Those epic scenes of honor and sacrifice? Total fantasy. Signing up meant stepping into a slow-motion death trap. If you were one of the few lucky ones, a bullet ended it quick. But most didn't go down in glory. They rotted away, their bodies overwhelmed by diseases so horrific that today's doctors would lose sleep just reading about them. The truth? The average Civil War soldier only fought for a week or two. The rest of the time, he was either marching through mud until his feet split open or wasting away in disease-ridden camps where sickness traveled faster than rumors. Roughly two-thirds of the 620,000 deaths weren't from battle wounds, but from bacteria and viruses no one saw coming. Every young man who pulled on that uniform, whether blue or gray, wasn't just gambling with death on the battlefield. He was throwing himself into a nonstop struggle against starvation, freezing nights, grotesque infections, and a crushing boredom that made even jail seem like paradise. So, your ancestor at Gettysburg? He didn't just dodge bullets, he survived hell. The real question is, if you woke up tomorrow in his place, could you handle it? Would you be among the few who limped home? Or would your body be dumped in some nameless grave, your memory misspelled and forgotten like so many others? Let's find out. But before we go back in time, if this kind of thing helps you drift off, a like or a sub would be dope. And yeah, drop where you're listening from and what time it is. I still trip out seeing comments from both Norway and Australia on the same video. Anyway, tonight's ride takes us to the American Civil War. But real quick, are you comfy? Like, really? Check those pillows. Grab your blanket. You'll want to be settled in. Because the place we're heading, comfort doesn't exist. You jolt awake in pitch blackness. For a second, your brain tricks you into thinking you're still in bed. But then the sensation kicks in. What you're lying on isn't your usual mattress. It's a layer of itchy straw over packed dirt. Then the stench hits you. The sour reek of unwashed bodies mixed with smoky campfires and the gag-inducing sweetness of human waste wafting from a trench toilet nearby. Welcome to 1862. You're stuck in a Union training camp near Washington, D.C., and yep, you just made the worst decision of your life, volunteering to join the war. Rise and shine, ladies, someone bellows. 5 minutes to roll call or you'll be scrubbing shit with your toothbrush. You groan, sitting up. Your back is already sore. Around you, 30 dudes fumble into their clothes, mumbling curses. That soft, warm bed back in 2025? Gone. You're on a wooden plank that barely holds you. The scratchy wool blanket didn't do much against the early chill, and even though it's only been one night, your whole body already feels like it's giving up. Jesus, this ain't what I signed up for, mutters the kid beside you. Just a teen from Ohio, barely 16, shivering in the dim lantern light. And the craziest part? He's better off than most. At least he's got a tent. Thousands more are outside, sleeping straight on the ground with nothing but their coats. Day one of being a hero, says a grizzled man across the tent, sarcasm thick in his voice. Wait till you get a load of breakfast. That'll really make you feel like a patriot. You yank on your new uniform, an itchy, dark blue wool coat and pants that somehow manage to be tight in some places and baggy in others. It's fresh but already reeked like a mix of sweat and chemicals. Let's get one thing clear. These weren't the custom-fitted Instagram uniform Hollywood likes to show off. Nope, the Union Army had just 4 sizes: small, medium, large, and XL. Imagine stuffing every body type in the country into that sizing chart. Yeah. Nobody's clothes fit. You spot a scrawny guy drowning in his sleeves and pants so long they're dragging in the mud. Meanwhile, a hulking blacksmith 2 bunks over is practically bursting out of his too small coat and pants that look like capris. Asses, the sergeant snaps, snapping you out of your thoughts. Union ain't paying you to stare at each other. You stumble into the morning cold, lining up with other days' recruits. The camp stretches out endlessly. White canvas tents lined up like a ghost town comes to life. Smoke curls up from countless fires. It's massive, almost like a whole city dropped here overnight. Impressive at first glance, but then you breathe through your nose and regret it instantly. Thousands of men living shoulder to shoulder with no proper plumbing? The smell could knock out a horse. The toilets are just trenches dug, hopefully downwind. And showers? Ha! That's something you dream about. Your nostrils are assaulted by a mix of sweat, smoke, manure, and the underlying sickly scent of disease spreading through camp like wildfire. Name? A bleary-eyed officer asks, barely looking up from his clipboard. You rattle it off, and he checks you off like you're a package delivery. Company K, 140th Regiment, he mutters, waving you toward a cluster of recruits just as confused as you are. You shuffle over, and the first rays of sunlight start spilling across the camp, stretching long shadows across the dew-covered ground. Day one of your new reality has officially started. All right, you sorry lot, barks a crusty old sergeant as he steps in front of your group. His face is weather-beaten leather, the kind you only get from years of sun and suffering. Today you learn what it means to be soldiers. Most of you are useless right now, but we don't have time to wait around. The Rebs aren't going to send a memo before attacking. He paces in front of the line like a butcher eyeing meat. Forget what you think war is. It ain't noble. It ain't quick. It sure as hell ain't fair. Your only job is to follow orders exactly. That's how you stay breathing. The kid next to you leans in, whispering, My pa said we'd beat the Rebs in a month and be home for the harvest. Big mistake. The sergeant freezes mid-step and turns. He walks right up to the kid until they're nose to nose. Your pa ever been to war, boy? He growls. No, sergeant, the recruit stammers. Then your pa doesn't know jack, the sergeant says coldly. None of you do, but you will, at least the ones who make it. With that charming intro, the real grind begins. The next few hours blur together. Marching drills, again and again. Left foot, right foot about face. Screw up and you get screamed at. Your arms burn from holding the rifle at just the right angle. Your feet feel like they're bleeding inside the boots, which, shock, weren't designed for comfort or even your actual size. In the 1860s, boots didn't come in left and right. They were identical, completely symmetrical, and only molded to your feet after weeks of painful wear. You didn't know that? Surprise. It was like putting on two shoes that were neither left nor right, just stiff slabs of leather with wooden soles and no padding. After a single day, your feet are covered in raw, stinging blisters. And just when your body starts to complain, your stomach joins in. Breakfast? A bitter cup of coffee that practically burns your throat, and a rock-solid chunk of something called hardtack, a flour and water cracker hard enough to shatter teeth. The seasoned guys dunk it in coffee or crush it into their cups. When your face shows disgust, an older volunteer laughs. Wait till we're in the field and it's crawling with worms, he says. Then you'll have a reason to complain. Worms? You hope he's joking. Weevils, he clarifies. They hatch inside the flour. Sometimes the cracker moves on its own. Extra protein, son. You'll be thankful when you're starving. As the sun rises higher, the meaning of training starts to sink in. It's not just about drilling formations or firing rifles. It's about keeping your body moving when every inch of it begs for rest. You push past the pain of your blistered feet, the thick sweat soaking your itchy uniform, and the desperate thirst that keeps growing as water becomes something to be rationed, not gulped. You think this is hard? The sergeant bellows as a few men fall behind. Wait till you're hiking 20 miles with a pack in Virginia's swampy heat. Wait till you've had no sleep in 3 days because Johnny Reb won't let you rest. Compared to what's coming, this is a walk in the park. Still, the morning feels endless. You march, turn, form lines, present arms, march again. Your arms go numb from holding the heavy rifle. Your legs tremble under your own weight. By noon, your uniform isn't clothing anymore. It's a slow-cooking oven wrapped around your body, stewing you in your own sweat. When they finally call for dinner, the men rush toward the cook fires like it's salvation. You line up, tin plate and cup in hand, hoping to finally eat something decent. What you get is a ladle of salty pork fat, another unyielding slab of hardtack, and more bitter coffee. That's it. This is what the average Union soldier eats, day after day. Tasteless, greasy, dry, and barely enough to keep you standing. Better get used to it, the kid from Ohio mutters, dropping beside you with his face sunburned and drenched in sweat. My brother's out front, says some days this is all they get. When they're lucky, they find a farm to requisition fresh food. Requisition, you ask, chewing the salty meat that tastes like leather soaked in brine. Steal, he replies with a half smile. Just don't say that around the officers. You force yourself to keep eating. You'll need the strength for the second half of the day, no matter how foul the food is. Around you, the men talk, snippets of stories from dozens of different lives. You're surrounded by a mashup of farmers, clerks, blacksmiths, immigrants, and born and bred Americans. Some can barely speak English. Others have never left their home states until now. All of them had an idea of what war would be, and all of them were dead wrong. My wife's due next month, one young man says quietly, both proud and heartbroken. Bet she has the baby before I even get near the fight. Hope we're home by then, another responds. My cousin joined last year. They told him it'd all be over in 3 months. He's still stuck in Virginia. Half his unit's already dead from camp fever. Camp fever? You blurt out, not meaning to interrupt. The men glance your way. You've just marked yourself as a greenhorn. Typhoid, someone explains, his tone flat. Spreads like lightning through the camps. Or dysentery. Men drop where they stand. Some never even make it to battle. Another recruit nods grimly. My uncle was at Bull Run. Said more men died from fever than rebel fire. One day, they're eating breakfast. By sundown, you're burying them. A shiver creeps down your spine despite the sweltering afternoon. You hadn't really thought about it until now. The unseen killers lurking in every corner, more deadly than any enemy rifle. The talk dies off as the sergeant's voices cut through the camp, calling for afternoon drills. Groaning, you push yourself up, every muscle protesting. The morning, that was just a teaser. The real grind begins now. You're introduced to the slow, frustrating process of learning to fire your rifle. There's a rhythm to it. Bite the cartridge, pour the powder, ram the ball, set the cap, aim, fire. Easy on paper. But in the chaos of battle, smoke thick in the air and fear surging through your veins, even getting off one clean shot is a miracle. Too slow, the sergeant growls as you fumble the percussion cap. Every second you waste is a second of Rebs aiming at your face. By late afternoon, your hands are stained black from powder. Your shoulder throbs from the rifle's kick. Your ears ring like church bells from the nonstop crack of gunfire. When the bugle finally sounds, signaling the end of training, you nearly drop to the ground from relief. But the day isn't over. Not by a long shot. There's still work to do. Collecting firewood, scrubbing down gear, maybe writing a letter if there's time before dark. The camp becomes a hive of movement again as men slip into their nightly routines. You slump outside your tent, massaging sore arms, watching the camp slowly transform in the golden light. Fires flicker to life one by one, their smoke rising in lazy curls that catch the last rays of sunset. Small groups form. Some guys chat, others gamble or strum out half-remembered songs on fiddles. If you squint, it almost looks like a festival instead of a war zone. Thomas, the Ohio farm kid, is beside you again, a piece of paper in his lap and pencil in hand. Writing to your mother? You ask. He nods, brow furrowed, as he tries to put this strange, brutal place into words without scaring her. Gonna mention the food? You joke. He gives a tired smile. No, she'd be on the next train with a picnic basket. But his grin fades quickly. Not gonna tell her about the sickness either, or what the sergeant said about our odds. The two of you sit in silence after that, surrounded by the quiet sounds of camp life. Distant chatter, muffled laughter, a melancholy fiddle tune drifting from somewhere beyond the tents. Then Thomas turns to you. Why'd you sign up? It's a question you've been avoiding, one that's haunted you all day. In this moment, tired, sore, and overwhelmed, the patriotic slogans that once stirred you feel hollow. Felt like the right thing, you say after a pause, not quite convincing even yourself. He nods like he gets it. Couldn't stay home while other men were fighting. Would have eaten me alive. He stares down at his half-finished letter. Though Pa might have been right about waiting for the draft. Could have had a few more months of Ma's biscuits. The sky darkens fully and the bugle calls again. Time for roll call in bed. You rise, legs stiff, already dreading the wooden plank that passes for a mattress. As the sergeant walks the line, calling names, he scans each face to make sure no one's bolted now that they've seen the ugly truth. When he finishes, he looks you all over with a hard, unreadable gaze. You did passably today, he says, which might be the closest he'll ever come to a compliment. Remember what you learned. Drill it into your skulls. Tomorrow's going to hurt more. With that lovely send-off, you're dismissed to your tents. You drop onto your bunk, staring at the canvas above, listening to the camp slowly quieting around you. That's when it hits for real. This is your life now. The bed you woke up in this morning, the one with soft sheets and a ceiling fan, feels a million miles away. All that lies ahead is more training, the march to the front lines, the horror of battle, and the constant threat of sickness and injury. Thomas is already out cold, softly snoring in the corner, too tired to care about the lumpy mattress. Around you, a few men whisper, play quiet hands of cards under dim lantern light, trying to stretch the day out just a little longer before the nightmares start. Several men have gathered near the road leading in from the supply wagons, their voices raised in excitement. At first, you assume it's another delivery, perhaps more hardtack or ammunition, but then you spot the cause of the stir. A small group of new recruits, fresh from the rail depot. They're young, even younger than Thomas, faces still full of that wide-eyed, nervous energy that you vaguely remember from your own arrival. Their uniforms are too clean, their packs too neat, their boots not yet caked in mud. As they're marched into camp, some veterans shout mock welcomes, half teasing, half warning. Better enjoy that clean shirt, boy, one calls. Won't last past morning drills. Another yells, hope you said goodbye to your stomach lining. Our cook kills more men than the Rebs. You exchange a glance with Thomas, who manages a weak smile through his sunburn. A week ago, you might have been one of those recruits, grinning nervously and trying to act brave. Now, just 2 days in, you feel worlds older. Watching the newcomers stumble and sweat under the weight of their gear, you realize something sobering. There's a brutal transformation waiting for each of them, and it's already begun for you. A wagon pulls into camp, quickly surrounded by eager soldiers. Mail call, someone yells, and everyone rushes toward it. The company clerk stands with a stack of letters, reading out names. Your name isn't called, and though it makes sense, there hasn't been enough time for anyone to write, you're still surprised by how disappointed you feel. Thomas does get a letter, a thick one that makes him beam. From Ma, he says, clutching it like it's pure gold. Probably wrote it before I even left. You're starting to realize that mail isn't just about messages, it's a lifeline. You see the way faces change when names are read, how men quietly drift away to read in private. Some are lucky and get cookies or dried fruit from home. Others look down, trying to hide their disappointment. One soldier rips open his letter, reads a few lines, and suddenly his face collapses. He walks away fast, clearly holding back tears. Bad news, Miller murmurs. Happens all the time. Life doesn't stop just because we're here. Folks get sick, crops fail, wives move on. Some days that mail wagon brings more heartbreak than the war itself. After mail call, it's back to drills, then evening mess. Beans tonight, better than salt pork, but still hard and tasteless. As the sun dips below the horizon, you finally get your first true free time. Some men sit down to write, using crates or knees as desks. Others gamble, betting with bits of hardtack. Somewhere someone starts playing a fiddle, and a small group joins in to sing songs from home. You sit outside your tent, sore and exhausted, watching the camp slowly settle. Despite the discomfort and monotony, there's something strangely captivating about this makeshift city of soldiers. Men from every state, every job, every background. Ohio boys are organizing a baseball game tomorrow. If we don't march, Thomas says as he sits next to you. You play? Before you can answer, shouting erupts. 2 soldiers are squaring off, fists up. A crowd rushes over. Jenkins said Richmond would fall by August, someone explains. Patterson called him a damn fool for it. A corporal quickly breaks it up, sending both men to cool off on opposite sides of camp. But the tension is obvious. Boredom, fear, and frustration simmer just below the surface. Happens every day, Miller says, appearing beside you. Too many men with nothing but time to think. Not a good mix. He gestures toward another crowd watching a man deal cards. That's why gambling's big. Keeps minds busy. You ask about alcohol, having noticed none around, Miller snorts. Officers get their whiskey. Us? We smuggle in what we can. When payday hits, so do the settlers with their overpriced stuff. Until then, he waves his arms around the dusty camp with mock pride. We have this fine establishment. Night falls. Men begin crawling into tents. Sleep comes quicker tonight, despite the stiff cot and itchy blanket. Just as you're drifting off, a loud commotion jolts you awake, shouting and running feet. You think it's an attack at first, but the voices sound excited. New fish! Fresh meat! Someone yells. You follow the others outside. A line of new recruits marches in, looking like you must have looked yesterday. Clean uniforms, uncertain expressions, still clinging to civilian awkwardness. Were we that green? Thomas whispers. Greener, Miller chuckles. At least they've got you now to teach 'em. It's weird, after just one full day, you're already more experienced than someone else. The way regular men are turned into soldiers so quickly is both scary and impressive. As the newcomers are sorted into groups, a low thunder grumbles in the distance. The veterans glance skyward, their expressions suddenly serious. Rain's coming, Miller says, sniffing the air. Check your gear. Don't let anything get soaked. You rush back to your tent to secure everything. The canvas is supposed to be waterproof, but the older guys clearly don't trust it. You find out why soon enough. The rain starts as fat drops and quickly becomes a pounding storm. Water finds every weak seam. Leaks spring up, soaking bunks and supplies. Paths between tents turn to mud rivers. Some men dig trenches. Others scramble to protect their few valuables. Welcome to Army luxury, Miller jokes, placing his cup under a leak above his bunk. Even the sky wants us dead. It rains all night. The sound of it hitting canvas makes sleep almost impossible. By morning, the camp is a swamp. Roll call is miserable, men standing in ankle-deep muck. Breakfast is worse than usual, watery coffee, soggy hardtack. Despite the weather, training continues. The sergeant seems to enjoy the suffering. You think the Rebs stop fighting when it rains? He yells. Rain's just another enemy. You march to the drill field. Thomas slips and falls face first in a puddle. He gets up, soaked and muddy. My ma's gonna kill me, he mutters. Spent 3 days sewing this uniform. She's not here, the sergeant growls, and that mud might save your hide. Shiny brass buttons make good targets. Drill is a special kind of hell. You try to keep your rifle dry, maintain formation in the slick mud. Your uniform grows heavier as it soaks up water. By midday, you're drenched and cold despite the summer air. Your hands look like shriveled prunes. Could be worse, a veteran says during a short break under a leaky shelter. Winter in Virginia, that's real suffering. A shiver crawls over your skin despite the burning midday sun. You hadn't thought about this side of war, the invisible killers that do their work more efficiently than any Confederate marksman. The moment is cut short when the sergeants begin shouting for afternoon formation. With a weary groan, you stand, your muscles stiff and aching, and fall back into line with your unit. The morning, it turns out, was just a preview. As the afternoon wears on, the drills become harsher. You're taught how to load and fire your rifle, a complex routine of steps you'll have to master until it's instinctual. Bite the cartridge, pour the powder, ram the ball, place the cap, aim, fire. Under perfect circumstances, a trained soldier might fire 3 shots per minute. In battle, with smoke clogging the air and adrenaline rushing, most won't even come close. Too slow, the sergeant snaps as you fumble with a percussion cap. Every second you waste is another chance for a Reb to put a bullet in your brain. By late afternoon, your hands are stained with gunpowder. Your shoulder throbs from the kick of the rifle, and your ears buzz from the noise. When the bugle finally signals the end of training, you nearly collapse from the sheer relief. But the day's far from over. There's firewood to gather, gear to clean, letters to write before the light fades. The camp buzzes with motion as thousands of soldiers go through their evening routines. Sitting outside your tent, you rub at your sore limbs, watching the camp shift with the sunset. Campfires flicker into life, their smoke blurring the amber sky. Men cluster together, chatting, playing cards, humming tunes. In another world, it might almost feel cheerful. The farm boy from Ohio, Thomas, you've learned his name now, settles next to you with a pencil and paper. Writing to your mother, you ask. He nods, struggling with how to describe this place without scaring her. You joke, asking if he'll mention the food. He chuckles weakly. Nah, she'd hop the next train with a basket full of fried chicken and cornbread. His smile falters. I'm not saying anything about the sickness either, or what the sergeant said about our chances. You both fall silent, listening to the murmur of voices, bursts of laughter, and a fiddle playing softly somewhere nearby. Why'd you sign up? Thomas asks suddenly, a question you've been silently asking yourself all day. Right now, aching and worn, all that patriotic fire that pushed you to enlist feels far away and foolish. Felt like the right thing to do, you reply vaguely. He nods like he understands. Couldn't just sit on the farm while others were out fighting. Wouldn't be right. He glances at his half-finished letter. But I'm starting to think Pa was smart for waiting on the draft. Could have gotten a few more months of Ma's cooking. Darkness settles in, and the bugle calls again for evening roll call. Then finally, sleep. You drag yourself up, every joint stiff, already dreading the hard bunk and the brutal morning to come. The sergeant walks the line, checking names, making sure no one's fled after their first taste of Army life. When he finishes, he turns to the company. You did passably today, he says, a rare compliment from him. Remember what you learned. Practice your drills. Rest up. Tomorrow'll be worse. With that comforting thought, you're sent to your tents. Lying on the rough cot, staring at the sagging canvas ceiling, you hear the quiet voices and the shuffle of men settling in. It hits you hard. This is your life now. The sore muscles, the tasteless meals, the relentless drills, and this is only the beginning. You haven't even left the camp yet. The march to the front still waits, the horrors of combat, the threat of wounds and illness. The warm bed you left behind this morning might as well belong to another life. Thomas is already asleep, snoring lightly, too worn out to care about the discomfort. Somewhere nearby, men whisper or play cards by lantern light. Despite the midday heat, a chill courses through you. You hadn't prepared for this part of war, the unseen threats that claim more lives than any Southern marksman. Before you can think further, sergeants start yelling for afternoon formation. With a reluctant groan, you stand, your body protesting each movement, and fall back in line with your unit. The morning was just a prelude. Now the drills intensify. You're taught the fundamental steps of firing your rifle, a sequence that must become automatic. Bite the cartridge, pour the powder, ram the ball, set the cap, aim and shoot. In perfect conditions, a well-trained soldier can fire 3 times a minute, but in the chaos of combat, with smoke blinding your sight and adrenaline making your fingers clumsy, most manage far less. Too slow, the sergeant roars as you struggle to place a percussion cap. Every second you waste is a second closer to a rebel bullet in your brain. By late afternoon, your hands are stained black with powder, your shoulders sore from recoil, your ears buzzing from constant firing. When the bugle finally signals the end of training, you almost collapse in relief. But the day isn't finished. Chores remain, collecting firewood, scrubbing gear, squeezing in letters home while there's still light. The camp is alive with motion. Thousands of men tending to small evening tasks. You sit outside your tent, massaging your aching arms, watching the camp transform in the dimming light. Fires spark to life across the field, their smoke turning the sky hazy as the sun sets. Groups gather, chatting, gambling, or singing. In another world, it might seem festive. Thomas, the farm boy from Ohio, settles beside you, pencil and paper in hand. Writing your mother, you ask. He nods, trying to decide how to describe life here without frightening her. Gonna tell her about the food? You tease. He chuckles. No, she'd be on the next train with fried chicken and cornbread. His smile fades. Not telling her about the illness either, or what the sergeant said about our odds. You both go quiet, listening to the murmurs of camp, the clink of pans, muted laughter, the soft hum of a fiddle somewhere far off. Why'd you enlist? Thomas asks suddenly. You've asked yourself that same question all day. Now, with pain settling into your bones and war's harsh truth creeping in, the noble reasons that pushed you to join feel distant, maybe even foolish. Seemed like the right thing to do, you reply. He nods like he understands. Couldn't stay on the farm while others fought. Wouldn't sit right. He looks down at the half-finished letter. Though maybe Pa was right about waiting for the draft, could have gotten a few more months of Mom's cooking. Night deepens. The bugle sounds again. Time for evening roll call and then rest. You rise slowly, already dreading the stiff bunk and the next punishing sunrise. The sergeant walks the line, calling out names, checking to see if anyone has already given up and run. He finishes and turns to address the company. You did passably, he says, which seems like praise coming from him. Drill what you learned. Sleep well. Tomorrow will be worse. With that charming encouragement, you're sent off to bed. As you lie back on your rough cot, staring at the canvas above, the truth begins to sink in. This is your life now. The hard bunk, bad meals, bone-deep fatigue, and you haven't even left the safety of camp. Ahead is the march to the front lines. Real combat, real danger, real death. The warm bed you left this morning already feels like a fantasy. Thomas is asleep beside you, snoring softly, too tired to care about the noise or the cold. Other men whisper nearby, some huddled around a dim lantern playing cards. You could see his face change completely. You had no idea what to say. What words could ever touch something like that? You did what you had to, Miller tells him, checking Thomas's rifle with steady hands. Same as he was trying to do to you. Don't let it eat at you. It'll drive you crazy. The march begins again. Your worn-down company becomes part of a huge Union column surging south like a flood of blue. The mood has shifted. Gone is the anxious excitement of men heading to their first fight. Now there's only the grim resolve of soldiers who know too well what lies ahead. The pursuit lasts 3 days. It mirrors your earlier march in some ways, but everything's different. You now pass through land scarred by war, burned out homes, ruined crops, shallow graves left in the wake of the Confederates. Civilians are gone, leaving the countryside eerily quiet. On the 3rd day, rain starts falling, a cold, constant downpour that turns roads to mud and streams into churning rivers. The pursuit slows, then stops entirely when bridges collapse and wagons get stuck. Your company is ordered to guard a crossroads while engineers work to rebuild. The rain doesn't let up. Tents leak, soaking everyone. The ground turns to sludge, forcing you to sleep sitting up against trees or rocks. Food runs low. Supplies can't get through. Welcome to the real army. Miller mutters as you crouch under a dripping tree. March in mud, fight in mud, sleep in mud, then do it again. By day 4, sickness sets in. Men who survive the fighting now fall to exposure and exhaustion. Fevers spread. The surgeon, still overwhelmed by wounded from the battle, now faces a new wave of patients. Somehow you're still healthy, maybe thanks to Miller's herbs, maybe just luck. But Thomas starts coughing. He brushes off your concern. Just a cold, he says. Save the medicine for someone worse off. On the 5th day, orders arrive. The pursuit is over. The Confederates have made it across the Rapidan and dug in. Too risky to follow. Your regiment is sent to Stevensburg to set up a more stable camp. The march there is brutal. Men lose boots in the mud and keep going barefoot. Wagons have to be dug out every mile. The rain keeps falling. 2 miles from camp, Thomas collapses. His fever's so high you can feel the heat without touching him. You and Miller carry him the rest of the way. He feels weightless in your arms. The surgeon takes one look and diagnoses pneumonia. Get him to the hospital tent. We'll do what we can. But there's little that can be done. They try quinine, mustard plasters, and whatever warmth and comfort they can offer in a packed, filthy tent. You visit whenever you're not on duty. Thomas gets worse, his cough deeper, his breath ragged, blood in the phlegm. One day he whispers, "Write my ma. Tell her I wasn't scared." You tell him he'll write her himself, that he'll be back on his feet soon. He doesn't believe you, but he appreciates you trying. That night, disease takes more men than bullets ever did. 3 die quietly. Thomas clings to life. The next morning, for the first time in days, the rain stops. The sun breaks through. Morale soars. Tents are flung open. Clothes and blankets hung to dry. Even the hospital improves. Thomas's cot is moved into the sunlight, and for the first time his breathing eases. The weather holds. Thomas's fever finally breaks. His cough clears. He'll live, the surgeon says. Won't be the same, though. Might never fight again. As Thomas recovers, your regiment builds a proper camp. Streets, latrines, even makeshift showers. You're put on picket duty. Long hours watching the tree line, nerves frayed. Confederate pickets watch too. Sometimes shots ring out, more from nerves than targets. Worst part of soldiering, Miller says. Better a real fight than all this waiting. A week later, Thomas comes back from the hospital. He's thin and pale, but alive. The war has aged him. Doc says if my lungs don't improve, I might get sent home, he tells you one night. Discharged. That's good, right? You say. Go home. Rest. Thomas shrugs. Feels like quitting, like I'm leaving you all behind. You didn't run, you say. You stood your ground. He doesn't look convinced, but the mail wagon arrives and distracts him. He gets a package, his mother's handwriting. Inside are knitted socks, a fruitcake, and dried apples. He shares everything, smiling for the first time in days. That night, your corner of camp almost feels like home. 2 days later, fresh troops arrive. Your company gets 15 replacements. One of them, a boy named William Jenkins, looks about 16 despite claiming he's 19. He's assigned to your tent. "You guys were at Brandy Station?" he asks, eyes wide. Just like that, you realize something's changed. To him, you're a veteran. You've seen battle, earned scars. It doesn't matter, you've only fought once. You've crossed some invisible line. "We were there," you say. "What's it like?" Jenkins asks. You glance at Thomas. He doesn't speak. You answer, louder than you expect. "Smoke everywhere. You load and shoot because everyone else is." Afterward, you're just glad you're still in one piece. Jenkins looks disappointed, but before he can ask more, the bugle calls assembly. Orders are in. The regiment's moving again. As you fall in line, you realize you're not the same person who showed up to camp weeks ago. You're still scared, still uncertain, but you belong here now. You've survived. You've seen death, disease, brotherhood. Whether you're brave or just lucky doesn't matter. You're not pretending anymore. You're living it. As you march, the first snowflake lands in your palm. It melts instantly. More follow, swirling down into the cold Virginia earth. "Gonna be a rough one," Miller mutters, eyeing the sky. "Better get working while the ground's still soft." It's November 1862. Your regiment is settling in for winter across the river from Fredericksburg. The fighting slows. Now comes a new challenge, enduring the cold, the boredom, and the creeping despair that winter brings. Winter quarters mean real shelters. No more tents. Your squad, Miller, Thomas, Jenkins, and you, starts building. Under Miller's guidance, you dig a shallow pit and build log walls. "Deeper's warmer," he explains. "Cold sinks. You want to be below it." You notch logs, seal gaps with mud, stack stones for a chimney. Tools are scarce, just a dull hatchet and a spade. Your hands bleed and blister but grow strong. Miller teaches you to mix clay and moss to seal the wind out. The chimney is a wobbly mess of stone and wood lined with clay. Dangerous, but it'll do. "The first snow's a warning," Thomas says. "My pa used to say God sends it early to remind fools to prepare." By nightfall, the snow is steady. Your hut is half done. No roof, just canvas stretched across the top. You sleep inside anyway, huddled for warmth. You wake up shivering, frost crusting your blanket. Miller chuckles, beard frozen. Summers for fighting, winters for surviving. The next day, cavalry nearby offer tools in exchange for help with their horses. With real axes and saws, your work speeds up. By day 3, the hut is nearly finished, 6 feet high, a pine roof, and a chimney that actually works. "We need a door," Miller says. You build one from old ration crates, hinging it with leather. Jenkins surprises you with his skill, sealing gaps with moss and clay. "Worked summers in a carpentry shop," he says. "Didn't think I'd use it like this." The whole camp is transforming. Every hut is different, some basic, others with porches or salvaged windows. "Give a soldier mud and sticks, he'll build a palace," Thomas jokes. Then complain it needs curtains. By week's end, your hut is done, just in time for a full storm. Wind shrieks around your walls. Snow piles up outside. Inside, around a small fire, you feel something close to peace. It's rough, it's smoky, but it's warm, and it's yours. Miller carves "Home Sweet Home" into the lintel above the door, at least till spring. The hardest part won't be building the shelter. It'll be enduring the endless winter days that come after. As the marches pause, the army slips into a strange rhythm. Brief bursts of duty followed by long stretches of idle time. Roll call still echoes daily, and drills continue when the weather allows. Rotating picket duty sends men to frozen riverbanks, scanning the snow-blurred distance for enemy signs. Fires need constant feeding, and men constantly scavenge for wood. But these tasks only fill small pockets of the day. Boredom kills more than bullets in winter, Miller tells Jenkins, who's already twitchy after a few days locked in camp. Give a man nothing to think about but himself, and he'll start going crazy. Different men cope in different ways. Some gamble for hours, risking the few coins they own on dice, cards, or whatever games they invent. Others write letters home describing life in camp while carefully avoiding any mention of death. Religious soldiers gather in prayer groups, holding small services wherever they can. Musicians play fiddles or harmonicas, piecing together fragile joy from the frozen stillness. Your squad, too, finds its way through the long winter. Miller keeps busy repairing gear, not just his own, but everyone's, showing you how to oil leather, defrost rifles properly, and waterproof boots with tallow and beeswax. Thomas takes over as cook, turning meager rations into meals with whatever he can scrounge. He learns to bake ash cakes in the coals and makes a surprisingly decent stew from salt pork, hardtack, and wild onions dug from beneath the snow. Jenkins becomes your link to camp gossip. His youthful grin draws people in, and he returns daily with stories, some nonsense, others close enough to the truth to matter. Your own surprising role becomes storytelling. You've absorbed enough war tales and rhythms from older soldiers to weave compelling narratives. Some are your own, others borrowed or imagined, but all serve the same purpose: escape. One night, bitterly cold and smoky, Jenkins asks you to retell a story about a cavalry charge. You do, describing a sweeping, thunderous clash of men and horses in exaggerated detail, but with emotional truth intact. It entertains, it educates Jenkins, still unbloodied. And for Thomas, it's a safer way to relive what he's seen. Christmas sneaks in with little official fanfare, but plenty of quiet celebration. The cooks manage a special meal, salt pork and hardtack again, but with extra coffee, dried fruit, and even a splash of whiskey handed down from the colonel. Your squad trades humble gifts: a whittled pipe from Miller, knitted socks from Thomas, a sketch of the hut from Jenkins. "Never thought I'd be saying Merry Christmas to you lot instead of my family," Thomas says, smiling faintly. "But I'm grateful for the walls and the fire. And you all are. These men weren't chosen, but they've become essential." Then the sickness comes. January brings bitter cold and waves of illness. Pneumonia, typhoid, and fevers sweep through camp. The surgeon's overwhelmed, the hospital tent now wood-walled and packed. "Don't get sick if you can help it," Miller warns after visiting a dying friend. "More die from treatment than the disease." Under his lead, your hut enforces strict hygiene: boiling water, careful food prep, constant airing out. Maybe it's luck, maybe discipline, but your squad stays mostly healthy, though the winter cough becomes a constant companion. Then supplies begin to vanish. Snow-choked roads delay wagons, and rations shrink. Coffee is stretched thin and rebrewed into bitter water. Meat becomes rare, leaving only heavily salted cuts that need overnight soaking. "Army stockpiles for winter," Miller explains. "By February, we're eating our boots." He's half joking. Veterans tell tales of boiled leather soup and bark meals. Your squad stretches rations with foraging, trades, and what Miller calls requisitioning. Stealing, really, but unspokenly tolerated. One raid yields sugar, coffee beans, and tobacco, the most precious of all. No one was a smoker before, but now the pipe becomes ritual. "A cold, hungry soldier without tobacco," Miller mutters. That's when desertion sets in. And it does. Men vanish nightly, fleeing toward home, northbound and desperate. Some make it, others are caught by cavalry patrols, dragged back for punishment, flogging if they're lucky, a firing squad if they're not. In late January, your regiment lines up in a hollow square to witness an execution. An example: the man dies calmly, too calmly. It won't stop others, Miller says that night. Might even push some further. Death looks better than staying here. February thaws, but only briefly. Snow turns to mud that floods tents and huts alike. You sleep on raised branches as water seeps through everything. Clothes, blankets, food, all wet and molding. "This is why I hate Virginia," Thomas mutters, squeezing out his socks. "Can't decide on one kind of misery." But the thaw brings wagons, and with them, mail. You get 2 letters, one from family, simple, warm. The other, surprisingly, from a neighbor's daughter. Her words linger. You keep the letter close to your chest, rereading it quietly. Jenkins gets none. His family moved, left no address. He says nothing, but you see the disappointment. You read him parts of your letter, the way Thomas once did for you. He listens intently. Mundane stories from home have become sacred. Then comes the inspection. Generals are touring the winter camps, and your regiment is warned days in advance. You clean everything: uniforms patched, rifles polished, walkways swept. Faces shaved, hair trimmed, boots scrubbed with snow. All this for some general to nod and trot away. Man probably sleeps in a mansion with feather pillows. The officers arrive, glance around, ask a few hollow questions, then move on. Hurry up and wait, Miller sighs, rubbing his frozen hands. By late February, rumors swirl, Confederates moving, Union lines shifting. The winter routine gives way to uneasy anticipation. Jenkins, once eager for glory, now looks older, quieter. "I'd rather fight cold than wonder if I'll catch a bullet," he says. You all feel it. March comes, and with it, preparations for war. Drills intensify. Weapons are tested, gear replaced, beards shaved to fit cartridge straps. The hut you've called home is cleared, personal items divided or discarded. Strange, leaving this place, Miller says, stuffing his pack. Feels like we built a life here. Crude though it was, that hut held more than heat. It held the bond of survival. On your last night, you sit together by the fire. No one speaks much. Jenkins carves at a stick. Thomas writes one final letter. Miller checks his gear again. "Might be our last night," Thomas finally says. "No telling who comes back." You try to joke, but it rings hollow. Miller looks up. "This is my third winter. Every spring I lose friends, and every spring I make new ones. That's war." He returns to his task. Then softer, "But I hope we're all back around a fire next winter." You fall silent. Even Jenkins says nothing for a long moment. Then quietly, with the simple belief of someone still untouched by battle, "We will. All of us." No one disagrees. The bugle calls before dawn, no longer just the background sound of winter camp life, but a sharp and undeniable command. It's not just any day, it's the beginning of a campaign. The air bites your skin as you step into the chill, the first light of day not yet warming the frosted ground. Your pack is loaded, rifle slung over your shoulder, cartridge box full. Around you, the regiment falls into line, though fewer than before. Winter has taken its toll. Some fell to sickness, some to despair, some simply vanished. The huts where you live seem empty now, stripped of life. Soon they'll collapse, lost to the forest like so many things in this war. The word to march passes down the ranks. No one looks back. You don't dare. The war has begun again, and behind you lies only memories. The long quiet of winter is over. Hunger, cold, disease, and boredom are replaced by movement, heat, marching, and combat. The friendships you made through those dark months will now be tested by the brutal spring. As the column begins to move, something in you shifts. You no longer feel like someone merely wearing a uniform. You feel like a soldier. Whether that means you'll survive, you don't know. But as the sun lifts over the trees and illuminates the line of blue stretching into the distance, a sense of pride wells in your chest. You've endured what many haven't. You survived winter in the Union Army, and now with spring comes a new price to pay. Your war doesn't end in a blaze of glory, a final battle, or a triumphant return. It ends with a paper in your hand, a sentence on a page, honorably discharged, May 5th, 1865. Though the major fighting is done and Lee has surrendered, the Army's wheels turn slowly. The letter comes in the middle of a quiet morning. You are to report to Washington for pay and processing. The surgeon has declared you unfit. Your shoulder never healed properly from a bullet wound months ago, and your arm still shakes when you hold a rifle. Just like that, you're done. You stare at the letter, reading it again and again. Is this it? 3 years of marching, freezing, fighting, losing friends, all of it ending with ink and a signature? Looks like you're out, Thomas says, reading over your shoulder. He slaps your good arm with a grin. Damn lucky. His face is tougher now, lined and marked by years of war. The farm boy who once trembled beside you is gone. In his place stands a hardened man. Miller nods, helping you pack. You did more than most. Don't feel bad. Out of your original group, only the 3 of you remain. Jenkins never made it out of the wilderness, lost in the fire, never found. The rest scattered, wounded, killed, or transferred. War devours men and forgets their names. You shake their hands. Words fail. There's no dramatic farewell. You've all seen too much to pretend this parting is anything new. Write when you can, Thomas says, assuming the post still works. Miller grins. Don't get shot now. That would be embarrassing. You all laugh, but the laughter is hollow. You begin your journey north, through rail lines still being repaired, across towns still scarred by war. In Washington, you're just one of hundreds, men missing limbs, men coughing up their lungs, men with blank eyes. You sleep in overcrowded boarding houses and wait in endless lines. Your name is finally called. A bored clerk hands you papers and a small bundle of cash, $103.40. It barely feels real. You sign the discharge form. You are no longer private, you're a civilian. On the train home, the country rolls past your window. Burned fields, quiet rivers, towns slowly waking from the nightmare. Other soldiers ride with you, sharing quiet stories, staring into nothing. Some drink, some sleep, some stare like you, trying to understand what's next. A child asks if you're a hero. You don't answer. A woman gives you bread. A man gives you his seat. A few others avoid you entirely. You don't blame them. You're not sure what you are anymore either. When your town finally comes into view, your heart pounds. You hadn't written ahead. You didn't know how. How do you explain war in a letter? Smoke curls from chimneys. People move through their routines. The world went on without you. It's the same, but you are not. No one meets you at the station. You shoulder your bag and start walking. Faces blur past. A few recognize you perhaps, but no one speaks. You're not the boy who left. You're a stranger in your own town. Then you reach your home. The roof is patched. The porch creaks. The door opens slowly. She steps out, eyes squinting in the afternoon light. Her hand rises to shield her vision, then drops. Her eyes widen. She knows. She runs to you, arms outstretched. Tears streak her face. You don't move. You're frozen. Then her arms wrap around you. Trembling, she whispers, my boy is home. You haven't heard that word, boy, in years. It doesn't feel like it fits anymore, but you let her hold you. And this time, you hold her back.